Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari. Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana. Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana. Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana. Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari. Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana. Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana. Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Hare Krishna Hare Krishna
his brother-in-law Shakuni. But everything failed by the will of the Lord, and at the last stage, even after losing everything, men and money, he wanted to remain as king, being the eldest uncle of Maharaj Yudhishthira. Maharaj Yudhishthira, as a matter of duty, maintained Dhritarashtra in royal honor, and Dhritarashtra was happily passing away his numbered days in the illusion of being a king or the royal uncle of King Yudhishthira. Vidura, as a saint and as the duty-bound, affectionate youngest brother of Dhritarashtra, wanted to awaken Dhritarashtra from his slumber of disease and old age. Vidura therefore sarcastically addressed Dhritarashtra as the king, which he was actually not. Everyone is the servant of eternal time, and therefore no one can be king in this material world. King means the person who can order. The celebrated English king wanted to order time and tide, but the time and tide refused to obey his order. Therefore, one is a false king in the material world, and Dhritarashtra was particularly reminded of factual, fearful happenings which had already approached him at that time. Vidura asked him to get out immediately if he wanted to be saved from the fearful situation which is approaching him fast. He did not ask Maharaj Yudhishthira in that way because he knew that a king like Maharaj Yudhishthira is aware of all the fearful situations of this flimsy world and would take care of himself in due course, even though Vidura might not be present at that time. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport. Om Ajnanatimmirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So it's explained here that when Yudhishthira was ruling, Dhritarashtra having lost his sons, he was passing his last days under the care of Yudhishthira Maharaj. Yudhishthira Maharaj was very respectful to his elderly uncle. But Dhritarashtra was not conscious of the fact that he has to prepare for death, which is soon going to overtake him. So Vidura came to rescue Dhritarashtra from this ignorance, and therefore Vidura is addressing Dhritarashtra, trying to give him relevant instructions. Dhritarashtra is completely ignorant about the impending death. Now, it is not just Dhritarashtra who's like that. Most people in this world are ignorant about impending death. The Srimad Bhagavatam explains that a human being has to lead a life of responsibility. One of the most important responsibilities of human life is this fundamental inquiry about what happens after death. Now, such an inquiry is possible only if any person is conscious that death can come at any moment. We all know that not everyone lives their full lifespan, expected lifespan. A human being is expected to live 100 years, but not everyone lives 100 years. We know of so many instances, people dying and at an earlier age. So it's a fact that nobody knows exactly when they're going to die. But scriptures are teaching us that death can come at any moment. And a responsible person in the human form of life should be prepared for death well before death comes. So, in one sense, death is described as the final examination of life. Why is it called the examination of life? Because depending upon how we are prepared to face death, we are either going to be successful or we are going to fail that final examination. What is meant by success or failure in that final examination? The scriptures explain, the Bhagavad Gita says, Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam tyajatyante kalevaram tam tamevaiti kaunteya sada tad bhava bhavitaha. Whatever the state of consciousness at the time of death, exactly that type of body we are going to get in our next life. So, we have experience in this life that the present body that we have is actually simply giving us so many undesirable miseries. This is again pointed out in the Bhagavad Gita. Any type of body in this material world, any material body, including the body of the great demigods in the higher planets, everyone has to face 4 fundamental miseries: birth, disease, old age, and death. Of these 4 problems, the problem of death is almost forgotten always. And people try to make adjustment to live comfortably, to live happily, to overcome all the miseries before death comes, whatever difficulties or dangers or calamities. And somehow, before death comes, everyone thinks relatively that if there is an immediate problem, somehow solve that problem and then feel some relief and think that, oh, now I am happy. But actually, there is no freedom from the miseries of material existence at any time. It is just a false, illusory feeling of happiness, because what is considered as happiness in this world is actually freedom from some immediate danger or misery. Just like now, practically everyone all over the world is fearful of not infecting this COVID-19 virus. Now somehow people will be thinking, if I don't get the infection before it completely is eradicated, then I am a successful person in this world. Almost everyone is thinking like that. And people are waiting when this pandemic will end. Now, it's not just the case with this pandemic. It is always the case with our life. Always. And if there is some situation which is favorable for enjoying some sense pleasures, then we think that should be lasting longer. Actually, all sense pleasures last only a moment. But we somehow have arranged our life in such a way that we can make some arrangements for getting more and more of these sense pleasures continuously, if possible, and avoiding miseries, avoiding pain, avoiding calamities. But certain calamities are beyond our control. We forget the fact that the laws of nature are very stringent and they are forcing us to undergo one misery after another without any real relief. It is just some temporary relief which somehow or the other we have become expert in trying to get some relief, immediate relief, or even if it is a temporary relief, we feel that somehow we have got over some problem and we can live comfortably, happily ever after. But then somehow this adjustment goes on only till death comes. Death is the particular calamity in everyone's life that completely finishes off all our so-called plans for living comfortably, happily, making adjustments, avoiding immediate problems, or making a temporary patchwork solution to immediate problems like that. The best example of the most intelligent and responsible human being is given in the Bhagavatam, the example of Pariksit Maharaj. Pariksit Maharaj was the emperor of this world. He was ruling very well. Everything was going on very nicely. Accidentally one day he happened to go to the forest for hunting, and he was cursed by a Brahmana boy to die by a snake bite within the next 7 days. So as soon as Pariksit got news of this curse by which he was to die after 7 days, immediately he decided to prepare for this impending death by handing over responsibility of ruling the kingdom to his son, and he went away to a sacred place and began to inquire from the saintly persons, what should I do to prepare for death that is going to happen after 7 days? This is very much praised, appreciated, glorified in the Srimad Bhagavatam. This is the perfect response of an intelligent, responsible human being. So it is explained in the Bhagavatam that Pariksit at least knew he had 7 days' time. As far as we are concerned, we don't even know whether we have 7 hours or 7 minutes or 7 seconds. We do not know. Even an old person who may be even very, very old thinks that he is going to live forever. In the sense that our materialistic way of life makes us forget about death. That's the way of materialistic life. We almost everyone knows we got to die some day, but the way we live, we forget about death. It's not just forgetting about death that is the problem with our way of living. We even don't make any inquiry what happens after death. It's unknown. Or some people would like to think, oh, when death comes, everything is finished. So nothing to bother about, nothing to inquire, nothing to ask, nothing to worry about. And with this kind of understanding, people have got a way of living, eat, drink and be merry. As long as you live in this world or in this body or in this life, enjoy life, because everything is going to be finished at the time of death. But then the foolish person who thinks like this does not understand that even before death comes, death is born along with our birth in this world. Every moment we are dying. That we do not understand. After all, what is death? That death is another change of body. Just like we are changing our body from childhood to youth to old age, similarly at death we change our body. That people do not know, do not understand, do not realize. And therefore, to simply think that at death everything is finished, I will not exist after death, is foolishness. Now, besides this point, even though a person may think when death comes everything is finished, when there is, let us say, some situation where there is a medical problem and some of these diseases or illnesses may be described as terminal illness, just like somebody unfortunately gets cancer, and if they are having cancer 4th stage, then doctors generally say it's called the terminal stage. That means they cannot expect to live very long. Just a question of few weeks or few months, they're going to die. So then why so much of endeavor to somehow cure this or do something to actually get a cure for this disease, even though it's in the terminal stage? So many diseases. Why is there constant endeavor to fight against these diseases, especially the terminal illness? Why? It is because our original nature is that we are eternal. We don't die. As spirit soul, we don't die. There is no death. So, we are not meant to die, neither we are going to die at the time of death. As spirit soul, we always continue, we exist, we live, we continue to exist even beyond death. But the question is, what type of body I am going to get next? It is certain that everyone who dies will get another body. But the question is, what type of body? We have experienced that in this life, in this particular body, we have experienced the fundamental miseries which we don't want, nobody wants. The misery of disease, the misery of old age, the misery of death, nobody wants. But then these things are forced upon us. That's the nature of this body. So, somebody like Pariksit Maharaj, an intelligent person, a responsible person, inquires, what happens after death? How can I prepare for death such a way that I don't get another body which is having these miseries? So, scriptures inform us that you can get freedom from all these miseries completely by making this inquiry and following certain simple principles. How to overcome this repetition of birth and death? How to overcome disease, old age, and that too not just make a permanent, not just make a temporary solution, but a permanent solution. So, Parikshit's inquiry, after he retired from his kingdom, from his responsibility as the emperor, and he went to the holy place. So, he was inquiring from the saintly persons who had gathered there, what is the duty of a person who is about to die? What is my duty? Next 7 days, what should I do? So there was no consensus among the saintly persons who were there, assembled there, till Shukadev Goswami, the greatest transcendentalist of his time, arrived in that holy place. And when Shukadev Goswami came, Pariksit Maharaj received him very respectfully, and everyone who had assembled there acknowledged that Shukadev Goswami is the greatest authority, spiritual authority in this transcendental subject matter. So Shukadev Goswami was given the highest seat of respect called Vyasasan. So he occupied, Shukadev Goswami occupied the Vyasasan, and Pariksit inquired from him, what is the duty if a person is about to die? And specifically, what should he do? What should he remember? What should he not do? So Shukadev Goswami was very pleased with this inquiry. So Shukadev Goswami says that your inquiry is actually the most important inquiry that any human being can make. And the answers to your question are actually the most important subject matter for every human being, not just every human being, actually every living being. So, the answer Shukadev Goswami gives is actually the subject matter of the entire Srimad Bhagavatam. So Bhagavatam is all about what is this death, what happens at the time of death, what is the what happens after death, what happens after death, and what is the ultimate goal of a person who wants to make a permanent solution to all problems and achieve eternal life free from all miseries, full of bliss and knowledge. So the inquiry should be actually, as it is said in the Vedanta Sutra, Athato Brahma Jignasa. Now that we have got a human form of life, we should make inquiry into the subject matter of Brahman, or the transcendence, the supreme absolute truth. We should inquire about absolute truth. But actually, people are lost in their materialist way of life. Sripad Shankaracharya, he says that Balastavat Krida Saktaha. As long as we are young, boyhood stage, we are busy with simply engaging in some play. All children, you see, simply they are engaged in playing. Even their so-called learning or going to school and engaging in some educational pursuit is also simply at the level of just playing. So Balastavat Krida Saktaha. And next stage, Tarunastavat Taruni Raktaha. And one reaches the youthful stage. A young boy is simply interested in searching after a young girl, company of a young girl. So, Balastavat Krida Saktaha, Tarunastavat Taruni Raktaha, Vriddhastavat Chinta Magnaha. And somehow, when the youth is over, then one reaches old age, then simply an old man is thinking, I could not do this, I wanted to do something else, I could not situate my family in the proper position. Then simply so many different worries. Chinta Magnaha. All old people, different kinds of worries. And Shankaracharya is telling, Parabrahmani Kopina Lagnaha. Nobody is interested at any stage in life about Parabrahman, the absolute truth. Nobody is interested in inquiry into the absolute truth. That is the actual fact. We are somehow engrossed with our own plans, with our own thoughts, with our own ideas at every stage in life. Nobody is interested in inquiring about the absolute truth. Even if people show interest in God or something about religion, that inquiry or that particular interest is only to solve some immediate problem so that they can live comfortably, live happily, live very nicely in this world, a happy life of material enjoyment. To that extent, people may be interested in going to a temple or worshipping God or inquiring about religion or religious principles. That's all. Just like many people, when they are too much stressed, they want stress relief, they want peace of mind. So this peace of mind is a very nicely marketed commodity among different categories of people at all, in all places, all over the world. This peace of mind. How can I get peace of mind? Because people don't understand the very nature of material existence is, it is filled with anxiety. Life in this material world is filled with anxiety. This is explained by Prahlad Maharaj in the 7th canto of the Bhagavatam. That Sada samudvigna dhyam asagraha. Always, anybody who has accepted this material body and does not have a spiritual understanding of the self, such a person simply accepting this material body to be all in all is always samudvigna dhyam, disturbed in the mind. Always disturbed in the mind. So Srila Prabhupada explains why this disturbance in the mind always. Because we have accepted something which is not our self, which is not our actual position as something which we can make some adjustment and live very nicely. No. This body is constantly subject to destruction. That's the nature of anything material. Be it this body or be it this table or be it any material object. As soon as a material object is created or is fabricated, immediately afterwards the gunas, the material modes, will act and systematically destroy this object over a period of time. That is the stringent law of material nature. So we do not realize this body is actually got a definite, a limited duration, and from the time we are born, this body is being destroyed. In the course of destruction, so many different other problems, even though we may not pay attention to this body being systematically destroyed by material nature, but there are so many other problems that come about while we are living in this body, while the destruction is going on. Time is ticking. Time, as Prabhupada says in the purport, time and tide wait for no man. So every human being is actually facing this situation. But everybody thinks that I don't have to bother about death now. Even though everyone knows I'm going to die. And they're seeing all around them there is death happening. Even they are seeing people dying well before the expected age, completion of their life. Everyone expects I will live 100 years. But actually, not everyone is going to live 100 years. Even a person who lives until the age of 100 thinks that, oh, I am going to live 105 years. And there are people, very rarely of course, who live 105, 107 years. So people forget about death, or they think I'm not going to die immediately. So this way, this ignorance of death, and more importantly, no preparation for facing death when death comes. And the fact is, for somebody who is not preparing themselves to face death, somebody who is not making proper inquiry into transcendence, Brahma Jignasa, for such people, it's always a fact that death comes suddenly. We have many times heard this. Oh, he suddenly died. So our reaction as devotees is, why do you say he suddenly died or some particular person died suddenly? Everyone in this world who is not engaged in spiritual inquiry and not preparing for death actually has experience of sudden death. Everyone dies suddenly. Because where is the preparation for death? When there is no preparation for death, it happens all of a sudden, whenever it comes. And the time they had for preparing for death, that time they were not actually doing anything to prepare for death. Typically, when young people take interest in spiritual life, others say, oh, it's too young, this is not the age for her practicing spiritual life. So they criticize youngsters who show interest in spiritual life, especially if somebody dedicates themselves for spiritual pursuit, then all the others in the society who are themselves foolish, who are themselves ignorant, who are themselves completely in danger of actually suddenly dying, they actually criticize. They think that young people who take to spiritual life very seriously are actually fanatic or some kind of mad people. But actually, we can understand, if we soberly think over the matter, that all through the life of a person, nobody actually takes seriously this subject matter of transcendence. So if somebody understands that we have been living in this world for millions of lifetimes, and every life we have made plans, and those plans are completely spoiled at the time of death, and then again we have to accept another body, again begin life, because nothing material we can carry from this life to the next life. How much ever we may earn money, are we going to take any money with us? How much ever degrees we acquire, knowledge we acquire, material knowledge, are we going to take with us in the next life? No. So everything we have to leave behind and go. In Bhagavad Gita, in just one line of one verse, Krishna explains this very nicely. Mrityu sarva haraschaham. Krishna says, for those who are not inquiring about this spiritual reality, Krishna says, I come as death and take away everything that they have. Everything is taken away. So, as far as those who are practicing Krishna consciousness, practicing inquiry about who is God, who am I, what is my relationship, making the fundamental inquiries. What about them? They are acquiring spiritual assets, which is going to be with them eternally. In the Bhagavad Gita, this is explained that anybody who practices spiritual life and makes spiritual progress, that their spiritual asset, what is spiritual asset? The spiritual progress that we make in understanding ourselves, in understanding God, in realizing the truth about ourselves and about God and about this world. This particular spiritual realization is never going to be lost. It is eternal. It is always going to be with us. Whereas all other material achievements, material assets, we cannot take with us. We got to leave behind completely. Every life, when death comes, end of every life in a particular body. So therefore, scriptures instruct us, apart from the basic minimum requirement of maintaining this body, whatever minimum material necessities are there, yes, they are required to maintain life in this body. But we should spend a good amount of time accumulating spiritual assets, which will be actually really helpful for us to properly face death whenever death comes, and which will go with us even beyond death, which is the actual asset to be acquired in this life, which is of real value. All these material assets are described as anartha. Anartha means actually useless, not of really real value. Why? Because they are all going to be left behind by us. We are not going to take it with us. This temporary life of few years or few decades or whatever, even 100 years, it is not really our eternal, our permanent life. Permanent life is eternal life, without any death, without any disease, without any miseries, without any problems, without ignorance, with full knowledge. So that is our real life. And that life is possible by inquiring into the real subject matter of transcendence. What is Brahman? What is Parabrahman? So who am I? Who is Krishna, God, Absolute Truth, Parabrahman? And what is my relationship? And what is this world? So understanding this, now Vidura has come to remind Dhritarashtra that what is Dhritarashtra's position, that Srila Prabhupada is explaining, that he lost the opportunity to become the emperor of the world because he was by birth blind. So when he lost, he was lamenting very much, oh, I could not become the emperor. Then when his younger brother ascended the throne, Pandu became the emperor, and Pandu died an untimely death. At that time, Pandu's children were minors, the 5 Pandavas. So therefore, Dhritarashtra became the caretaker king. And naturally, Dhritarashtra was the guardian of the Pandavas, the fatherless Pandavas, after Pandu's death. So while he was actually taking care of his own sons and the Pandavas, he developed this ambition that somehow I should remain the king even when Yudhishthira grows up and he actually has the rightful claim for ruling this world. Before that, somehow, if the Pandavas die, all the 5 Pandavas, so he made arrangements to somehow kill the Pandavas. He actually made some plans with his brother-in-law, Shakuni, and he had a wicked, evil son, Duryodhana, who also was ambitious to become the king, the emperor. So Duryodhana and Dhritarashtra, along with the help of Shakuni, plotted to kill the Pandavas in so many ways. But by the will of the Supreme Lord, all their plans failed. And after everything has actually failed, Dhritarashtra has still not realized what is his position. After the battle of Kurukshetra, where Dhritarashtra lost all his sons and he lost his kingdom, Yudhishthira took charge of ruling the world, and then Dhritarashtra is staying under the care of Yudhishthira, trying to enjoy the remaining days, royal happiness, because Yudhishthira was very nicely taken care of. So Vidura noticed this particular ignorance of Dhritarashtra, and as a real well-wisher, true well-wisher of Dhritarashtra, he came to actually warn Dhritarashtra that you are wasting time. Impending danger of death is fast approaching, especially because he is old. He can die any time, any moment. But he is ignorant. So Vidura is warning. Vidura is telling, please get out of here immediately. Of course, he is using very harsh words. But that is necessary to shake up Dhritarashtra from his ignorance. And he is telling particularly, do not delay. Nirgamyatam shigram. Because just see how fear has overtaken you. Pashyedam bhayamagatam. So in the future verses, Vidura will point out the different causes of fear for Dhritarashtra. Very nicely he will point out. And we will see the result as the title of the chapter indicates. Dhritarashtra quits home. He leaves the palace and goes away. for spiritual realization, as Vidura will actually instruct him, exactly as Vidura instructs him. So Dhritarashtra had become completely lost in his pursuit of material happiness. All of us are in a similar position if we are not careful, if we are not making proper inquiries, spiritual inquiries, if we don't take spiritual life very seriously. All of us are in similar situation like Dhritarashtra. Everyone is busy making some arrangements for enjoying life materially. But what is this material happiness? It is simply like there is a bird called ostrich that whenever there is danger, it buries its head in the sand or in the earth, in the ground, and thinks, oh, now the danger is gone. Or rabbits, when there is danger, it closes its eyes and thinks, oh, now there is no danger. So all the human beings who are busy making material arrangements for material happiness, or trying to avoid or make adjustments for avoiding material problems, making some temporary solution to material problems, are like the rabbit or the ostrich. Because that final thing called death is definitely going to come, and that is going to finish off all our adjustments and plans and arrangements and our comforts. Everything is going to be finished. So please don't think this is a pessimistic view of life that is being described in the Bhagavatam or in the scriptures. No, we don't say that people have to live a life where they have to simply undergo some difficulty or some trouble or some austerity, especially austerity. Nobody likes austerity. So in Krishna consciousness, it is said that there are no difficult austerities that usually people used to undertake in the previous ages. It's like people used to go to the forest and practice austerity of living in the forest with very, very bare minimum necessities. No, it is not that everybody has to live like that. No, it is just that along with our living in any situation, any a reasonably comfortable situation, we have to also make this inquiry about transcendence, Brahma Jigyasa. And this subject matter is particularly very nicely explained in the Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam. So we should actually study, hear, read, and understand the subject matter, what is described in the Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam regularly. And we should also practice this chanting of the holy name of God, which is the easiest thing to do, which is also a type of sacrifice called Sankirtan Yajna or Japa Yajna. This yajna is very easily performed. It is not really very difficult to do. Anybody can do this chanting of Hare Krishna, either in the form of japa or in the form of kirtana. Anybody can do. It's very easy. And partake remnants of food offered to Krishna, prasadam. We anyway eat food, but instead of simply eating some food, we partake of remnants of food, nice food offered to Krishna as prasadam. And that will also help us actually acquire spiritual assets. All these activities centered around bhakti, practice of bhakti yoga, all these activities are meant to help us accumulate spiritual assets. There's something called spiritual credit Sukruti. Sukruti is different from Punya. Punya is some pious credit one may get for doing some pious activity. Just like all the welfare activities that people generally do to help somebody who is in need or somebody who is having some danger or difficulty. That is called Punya Karma. But doing any spiritual activity which is basically centered around Krishna, the Supreme Lord, the spiritual personality of Godhead, that activity actually will give us not just punya but sukruti. Sukruti is spiritual credit. The difference is punya can get you some material enjoyment, material pleasure, material comfort, but sukruti will get you spiritual benefit in terms of spiritual enlightenment, spiritual progress, spiritual asset which you can get, by which you can get eternal life. So we should accumulate spiritual credits. We should practice spiritual life, especially this bhakti yoga. And by doing this, we will actually accumulate spiritual credits. We will become spiritually enlightened. We'll exactly understand what is death, what is who am I, what is this spirit soul that each one of us is, what's the difference between the body and the soul, and how to actually live a life where we are able to maintain the body, at the same time we are able to advance or progress spiritually, accumulate sufficient spiritual assets to be able to face death boldly without any fear, and actually transcend death by not accepting another material body when we die or when we actually quit this body. When we quit this body, we are not going to accept another material body. That is success of the final examination of life called death. Hare Krishna.